Hello dear students, welcome once again to yet another video lesson on George Orwell's most famous novella Animal Farm, which he used to criticize the Russian Revolution of 1917 and also to show his strong protest against Stalin. In the previous video, we went through some of the most important events that occur in chapter 1 of Animal Farm. We understood that the name of the farm is Manor Farm and it is owned by Mr. Jones. The novella begins with a meeting that is convened by old Major, a respectable figure on Manor Farm. He convenes the meeting to discuss about the dream that he saw. He talks to the animals about the nature of life of animals in England and all other lands. He says that they are under slavery, they are experiencing misery, and the root cause of all this hardship is man. Remove man from the scene and you remove all the reasons for their hardship. Old Major also gives them many advices. He asks them not to be like man when the rebellion has happened and they have overthrown man from the scene. Finally, he goes on to narrate the dream that he saw. The dream that he sees is an earth on which there is no man, an earth from which man has vanished, a world which is dominated by animals. He also teaches them the Beast of England song, which lyrically conveys the vision that old Major sees through his dream. And thus we come to the end of chapter 1. In this video we will be going through some of the most important events that occur in chapter 2. Let me remind you, I will not be reading the text as such, but we will be going through the most important events that happen in chapter 2. Chapter 2 begins with the death of old Major, and it happens 3 nights later to when old Major delivered his speech and his body was buried at the foot of the orchard. It's a decisive point for the animals because they have lost their leader, the reason behind their inspiration to commit the rebellion, the person who spoke about a golden future time when animals will experience no slavery. So this is the first and most important event that happens in chapter 2, the death of old Major. This happens in early March. And now we have other prominent characters coming up, especially 2 pigs named Snowball and Napoleon. You also understand that the pigs are gradually gaining more prominence and importance on the farm. The work of teaching and organizing the others fell naturally upon the pigs, who were generally recognized as being the cleverest of the animals. So you understand that the pigs started gaining prominence. We also come across the descriptions of the leaders, the at present leaders, Napoleon and Snowball. Napoleon was a large, rather fierce-looking Berkshire boar, not much of a talker, but with a reputation for getting his own way. That is how George Orwell describes Napoleon. And you must remember that Napoleon stands for Stalin in this particular story. And Snowball is described as a vivacious pig who is quicker in speech and more inventive, but did not have a depth in his character. There is yet another important character who pops up in chapter 2, and that is Squealer. He is described as a brilliant talker, and he had this special way of skipping from side to side and whisking his tail which was very much persuasive. And he was so persuasive that everyone believed that Squealer could turn black into white. That is how capable he was as far as his speeches and his ability to persuade was. Now these three pigs, Napoleon, Snowball and Squealer, they elaborated old Major's teachings into a complete system of thought which they called as animalism. This sounds much more like communism. And the pigs started teaching the essence of animalism to the other animals on the farm. And it was especially done when Mr. Jones was asleep. Now we find yet another important character in the novella as far as the historical background of Russian Revolution is concerned. It's Moses, the especial pet of Mr. Jones. Now, he talks to the other animals of a place called Sugar Candy Mountain. Now Moses is a raven and he is able to fly across the sky, and he says that he has seen this particular place called Sugar Candy Mountain. And his argument is that it is the place to which all animals went when they died. Now it has implicit criticism on religion during the times of Russian Revolution. Moses says that Sugar Candy Mountain was situated up in the sky, somewhere beyond the clouds, and the speciality of this place was that it was Sunday 7 days a week, and you got all kinds of food: clover, lump sugar, linseed cake, all through the seasons. There was never a shortage for anything. You also come across two other characters who were already introduced in chapter 1. Boxer and Clover. They were very much faithful to their leaders, especially Napoleon and Snowball. These characters were unfailing in their attendance at the secret meetings which were held in the barn, and they always led the singing of Beasts of England with which the meetings always ended. Right now, the farm has this particular habit of ending these secret meetings which they conducted after Mr. Jones slept, and these meetings always ended with the singing of Beasts of England, which was taught to them by Old Major. Now we also understand that the rebellion which Old Major foresaw, Old Major predicted in chapter 1 materializes in chapter 2. It happens much before anyone had expected it to happen. And the reason why the rebellion happened early is that the animals were underfed for a long time. Now Mr. Jones, although he was a hard master, had been a capable farmer, but of late he had fallen on evil days. He had become much disheartened after losing money in a legal suit. His men were idle and dishonest, and they never took care of the farm, the buildings on the farm, as well as the animals. This leads the animal to revolt. Now, some of the animals breaks into the storage room and they have a sumptuous meal, and seeing this, Mr. Jones and his men get irritated and they try to bring the animals under control. But this was more than the hungry animals could bear. Together they started rebelling, revolting, and they flung themselves upon their tormentors. And after a minute, what we see is that the animals chases down the humans down the main road. And finally they understand that the rebellion has happened and that they have overthrown man from the farm. The animals had chased Jones and his men out onto the road and slammed the 5-barred gate behind them. And so, almost before they knew what was happening, the rebellion had been successfully carried through. Jones was expelled and the manor farm was theirs. So we understand that the rebellion has happened, and now the manor farm actually belongs to the animals. Now these animals, they can't believe this. At first, the reaction is they run around the farm and they try to see if there are any more human beings who are hiding in the farm. Now then, they go to the harness room where all kinds of symbols related to slavery were there. They bring out every bits of it. They bring out the nose rings, the dog chains, the knives. They bring out the halters, the blinkers, the nose bags, and everything was thrown into a fire. This was actually a way of celebrating their freedom. And we understand that the animals, under the leadership of Napoleon and Snowball, they restructure the working of the farm and they start to enjoy freedom. Now, at one point, George Orwell says that the animals slept as they had never slept before, and that is because they are experiencing freedom. Now, the pigs, as I said earlier, they were coming into prominence, and we see that again happening now. The pigs say that they had been learning how to read and write from old spelling book which had belonged to Mr. John's children. They start to teach the other animals on the farm as well. Now the farm is theirs. The earlier name of the farm was Manor Farm, and we see that Snowball replaces the name Manor Farm with Animal Farm. And it's Snowball who was best at writing, and he does the job of erasing the title Manor Farm and repainting it with the name Animal Farm. Snowball and Napoleon also conveys to them the essential principles of animalism, and they call it the 7 commandments. And it was decided to inscribe these 7 commandments on the wall of the barn. These commandments were actually given to them by Old Major. The 7 commandments are: whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. No animal shall wear clothes. No animal shall sleep in a bed. No animal shall drink alcohol. No animal shall kill any other animal. All animals are equal. Now, when you go through the speech of Old Major in chapter 1, you understand that all these commandments have been directly deciphered from the teachings of Old Major. And finally, we see in chapter 2 that the pigs have started being a little bit selfish as well. Instead of distributing the milk that was taken from the cows between all the animals on the farm, the pigs appropriate them for their own use. So chapter 2 ends on a good note as well as on a warning that the pigs have started to dominate the things on the farm. With this, we come to the end of this video lesson. Thank you for watching as well as listening. In the next video, I will be narrating chapter 3. See you in the next video. Thank you.